All right, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole, April 21st, 2026, to order. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Kroll, Councillor DeAndretti, all in favor? We have 3 delegations today. The first one is Corporal Tui, and he's going to be presenting for the RCMP first quarter stats.
Thank you. Make sure this is on. Maybe the mic on, yeah.
Green. Testing, good? Right on. Good afternoon, everyone. Councillors, members, Manny. I believe you do have the numbers in front of you? Okay. I was given this last minute, so just put together a few things and hopefully it makes sense. Essentially, I summarized the document and the numbers, and then I'll just speak to it, and then I'm open to questions after that, if that works for you guys. Perfect. So first of all, I'm going to be providing an overview of the Q1 stats and reporting and trends. And as you can see, while there are some increases in certain areas, many of these are driven by increased reporting, proactive policing, and enhanced service delivery. So calls for service increased in the town of Gibsons. These are the numbers that are presented before you. And they've increased by approximately 4.9% from 2,149 calls to 2,254 calls. So this reflects the steady demand rather than a sharp spike in the numbers. The second category of calls increased by 8.8%, and that's largely due to a higher activity in January and February. And so I was looking at it earlier as far as the crime trends, there are 4 categories that we look at that get handed to us. So the first one is the total criminal code offenses increase in the town of Gibsons by 17.4%. Violent crime decreased actually by 8.5%. And the decrease in violent crime is actually a positive trend, and that's largely due to the decrease in criminal harassment files. So that's pretty positive for us and for the town, of course. Property crime unfortunately increased by 21.4%. And other criminal code offenses did increase by 37.8%. And in case you're wondering what they are, some of these other criminal offenses are breach of conditions, court order conditions, and what have you. So they fall under different other categories. So I'll talk about the property crime. Property crime increases are driven by essentially break and enters to businesses, mischiefs, and shoplifting. And often they're linked to repeat offenders and crime of opportunity for certain individuals that are in the town of Gibsons. Other criminal code increases are essentially due to the fact that we're doing more proactive enforcement of breach of conditions, which do reflect the numbers and the increase in sex offense files as well. And I'll talk a little bit about the sex offense files. You'll see in the numbers that they've gone up. So the increase in sex offense files is largely a reflection of the improved technology and investigative tools that allow us, the police, to investigate, detect, and get those notifications that will help us and have been helping us identify offenses that may not have been uncovered in the past. So that's why that explains the increase in the numbers of those offenses. So the overall UCR stands for Uniform Crime Reporting Codes, offenses that we fall under, essentially increased by 10.1%, with property crime and other criminal code offenses being the key contributors. So one area I want to highlight specifically is mental health-related calls and apprehensions. As you can see, there's a separate sheet for that as well, indicating the increase for calls and dealings with mental health. We've seen an increase in those occurrences, which are directly linked to the addition of a full-time mental health liaison officer, as you, I'm sure, have heard of before. So that has helped Sunshine Coast overall help us deal with mental health calls. So this has significantly improved our ability to, one, identify individuals in crisis, and two, intervene earlier, ensuring that the clients receive the appropriate care and support. And so while these numbers have increased, it actually reflects enhanced service delivery and proactive intervention, not a worsening of community conditions. So at the end, I'm going to say that we at the Sunshine Coast RCMP continue to focus on increased patrols, targeted enforcement, community engagement, and partnerships with mental health, outreach, and other agencies on the coast. One last thing to add from Sunshine Coast RCMP detachment is that we are proud and happy that we're getting 2 new recruits in the next 2 months. So that will certainly assist us in delivering and enhancing the service that we provide our community. And I'll finish off with this. So overall, while some categories have increased, these trends are being effectively or actively monitored and addressed, and in several areas, the data reflects improved reporting and service delivery, which is a positive indicator of community trust and proactive policing. And with that, thank you. That's all I have. Open to questions.
Thank you, Corporal. I had a question after reading, and then I'll go to the rest of council.
Yep.
There's a lot of red, obviously, on these pages, and I'm just curious. I know you probably can't create more. I mean, you guys are probably dated right up the, you know what? But is a lot of the red, like say the mental health or things that are increasing, is it confined to like a small group of the population? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it the same? Like I know it says apprehensions. Is it the same recurring mental health calls? Like, are people calling it on the same, say, small group of individuals over and over again? Just because you'd think that based on the increase, you'd think, wow, there's, like when you hear mental health increase in calls, you think, wow, are there a lot of like people suffering from mental health, or is it a lot of calls for 3 people? I guess that's my question.
It's a fair question to ask, especially when it comes to mental health. And for us, mental health is separate than anything to do with criminal offenses. So it's 2 different lanes, if I may use that. To answer your question, it is not repeat certain individuals when it comes to mental health. Mental health is something that we deal with across the board, across the Sunshine Coast, across the province, across the country. So to answer, it's not repeat offenders. And I don't even like to use the word offenders for mental health, but you know what I mean. So we keep them separate, and they are separate because they're 2 different things. So no, it's not repeat.
Thank you. Oh my God. Sorry, blank. Vandalism, like if consider property crime?
Correct.
Is it? Okay, so I saw in our bylaw officer report a lot of vandalism, but my question is, do they have to phone the RCMP for you guys to count as in your statistics, or there's a relationship built between the town and the police?
I want to make sure I understand the question. Like, are we getting those stats to us as far as mischief?
Or in order for the RCMP to report, do they need to call you, or perhaps is the town identify? Maybe this should be a question for staff. Sorry,
okay.
But just trying to understand the reporting, because on the bylaw officer there was some vandalism going on, so I was just curious.
Absolutely, yeah. That came to our attention about a month or less than a month ago. But at the end of the day, anything that comes to our attention essentially gets added on the reports and the numbers. So vandalism, yes, is part of property crime, which could be mischief, is mischief, not could be. So anything that comes to us gets added to those numbers. And as far as I believe you're talking about the latest tagging or vandalism that you're referring to, is that what it might be?
Oh, it's on our bylaw officer report. There's some vandalism occurring, so I was trying to understand if there's some connection with data reporting, but maybe our staff can.
There is, yeah. Anything that comes to us, whether it's bylaw reporting or the citizens, or even us discovering these incidents, gets added to the reports.
Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your report, and I really do like the new sort of format that the reporting is in. And I'm assuming that this format is now standard with all our CMP reporting?
Councillor, I found that out this morning, yes. Yeah, I was used to a different one, but it is now the standard, yes.
No, it's great. And, something that people tend to forget with these statistics is that, if there was one incident before and now there's one more, when you look at it as a percentage, it jumps, alarmingly. So you really have to look at the figures and not just the percentages, because sometimes it's not as bad as it looks.
Absolutely. It's why we like to explain the full picture. To me and to us, the numbers are black and white, but there's got to be context. And that's why we look at that on a different angle as well.
And just as a follow-up, you mentioned that you've got 2 new members. What is the status of the overall membership of the detachment? Are you, well, with the 2 members, will you be up to snuff, or are you still wanting?
We're always wanting more officers. And I apologize, Council, I don't have the exact numbers. I should have attained that this morning. I don't have the exact numbers of officers, but I do know we are still short and still dealing with resourcing shortages. But those 2 extra, not extra, the other 2 recruits will definitely help us on the big picture, but I don't have the exact numbers today.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. As it relates to the mental health call-outs, at what point in that process how does it get determined if it's a mental health call-out or if it's an actual incident of another nature? How does that determination get made?
That's a very good question. Actually, I was asked that not too long ago at a youth group. And just to be clear, you want to know how we determine whether it's a mental health call and or whether it's a criminal offense? Just want to be clear? Okay. So first and foremost, and again, it's a really good question. First and foremost, whenever we, the police, attend, the number one concern for us is the person's well-being. In this case, mental well-being. So that's what we go at it from that angle initially. So there's 2 different things. If an incident is ongoing, let's say somebody is in the act of getting assaulted, give you an example. That is the first thing that we do when we attend any scene, is to make sure everyone's safe. So we do have the lawful duty to execute or to enforce the criminal code. Having said that, mental health is something that essentially goes hand in hand. But when we attend, once we determine that we're dealing with a person that is suffering from mental health, this is the angle that we go down. So essentially it might lead to an apprehension, it might lead to getting the ambulance involved, the medical system involved, referrals, hence why I talked about earlier about community outreach and our partners. A lot of times we attend calls where we determine, this is not a police matter. And yes, it does add to the stats that we're talking about stats. But we end up doing a referral for that individual. So we determine, okay, based on hence the investigation. There's an initial investigation and there's a follow-up investigation. So, but back to what I said before, the mental well-being of every client that we attend to, that's the first and foremost, safety. Hope that answers it. Good.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the report. Thanks for your service. extend that to everybody,
Appreciate that.
and we'll see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you for your time.
Hopefully here, not out on the streets, yeah. All right, the next delegation is, Mark Soul is going to present for the Sunshine Coast Regional District on the draft of the Solid Waste Management Plan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. So my name is Mark. I'm the manager of Solid Waste, and with me here today as well is Remco Rosenboom, the general manager of Infrastructure Services. Thank you. Totally.
Lisa, what does it say on your screen?
I'm just seeing
Because it's advanced on this one.
it's just there at the names. Oh, here we go. Something happened.
Probably just lagging.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I'll start off with a brief little background here on what a solid waste management plan is. And in essence, it's a requirement that the province puts on regional districts. It's one of the few things that a regional district has to do under the Local Government Act. And it defines how we're going to manage waste in our region. That's existing programs and services, there's guiding principles, targets, as well as future planning for big capital expenses. And that all forms a very kind of high-level 10-year financial plan. Of note, too, is that implementation of the plan does have to be kind of administered or monitored by an advisory committee. And I just want to touch on, some of the outcomes of the initial round of engagement in which I was here presenting probably 2 years ago to council. And we've settled on targeting 300 kilograms per capita. That is 300 kilograms of waste per person. And that's a decrease from our current level, which is roughly 348 kilograms per person. So where we've been, as I mentioned, we were out in the community 2 years ago doing engagement on sort of the guiding principles of the plan, some very kind of like high-level strategic kind of targets and actions that we want to reach. Obviously, there was a key need to invest in long-term waste disposal in the region, with our Seashell landfill expected to reach capacity in 2030. And so with that in mind, the strategies and actions in the draft solid waste management plan were prioritized, knowing that long-term disposal is going to have a significant cost implication for the overall 10-year plan. If you want to do next slide. So getting onto that topic of long-term disposal, I just want to give a brief history of all the work that has happened to date in the region, and it goes all the way back to 2020 when there was an initial study on building an entirely new landfill. And essentially, that was deemed not feasible, mostly due to time. It's quite a lengthy process to site a new landfill. There's lots of studies that have to be done, and there just simply isn't the time to explore that with the remaining lifespan of the Seashell landfill. Another very popular idea in the community is the idea of waste to energy. And so a study was done on that, and essentially we don't have the volume or the population size to really make that feasible. The types of plants that people often think of in Europe are multi-billion-dollar facilities, and that's just not something that the region could sustain. There was also an initial study on waste export, and that was deemed feasible, however, quite costly. And so with that in mind, the SCRD amended the previous solid waste management plan to allow waste export, because that plan did not allow for export out of the region. And that kind of served as a backup plan, because at the time there was no clear direction on where to go from there. And so in 2022, there was another study done on siting a new landfill, and this sort of helped to confirm some of the findings of the first study, that there are some locations, but feasibility of constructing a site at those is quite challenging given the time frame we have remaining. There was also a study done on a lateral expansion of the Seashell landfill, which was found to be technically and financially feasible, but that was not supported by the landowner. Simultaneous to this, the SCRD moved our contact water pond at the landfill. That is the pond that contains water that has come into contact with garbage. And by relocating it from its position there in the drawing with that kind of dark browny green patch on the left-hand side of the landfill, by moving that into the corner just north of it, we're able to gain another 5 to 7 years of life, which extended the Seashell landfill's remaining lifespan to 2030. Otherwise, the site would be closing as we speak. And so I just want to touch on sort of what an unplanned waste export might look like, what that plan B might look like, and that sort of helps frame the importance of moving forward on a decision on long-term disposal and why it's a key priority in the solid waste management plan. And so currently, the Seashell landfill site doesn't have a commercial tipping area because all of the large garbage trucks are sent up to the active face. There's also very limited space at the site to build a concrete tipping pad. And our sites cannot accommodate bins larger than 40 yards, and there's also very limited compaction or densification at our sites. And all to say, what this means is that we would likely have to direct all commercial traffic to Pender Harbor Transfer Station, where there is a commercial pad, and there would be a lot of trucks hauling 40-yard bins off of the coast. So more traffic, more greenhouse gas emissions, and with some kind of high-level math, we estimate that this is well north of $700 a ton for garbage. And so we really want to avoid this scenario from happening. So what did the SCRD do to try and come to a feasible conclusion here? We looked at waste export in more detail, and we also looked at a vertical expansion of the Seashell landfill. And our neighbors over in Squamish-Lillooet at the Squamish landfill did just this, where they built a large retaining wall, and it is currently working out quite well for them. And so the findings of this feasibility study determined that both of these options are technically feasible, both can be constructed within the remaining lifespan of the Seashell landfill, assuming no delays and that everything goes smoothly. However, both have some pretty high capital costs and also some increased operating costs. So talking about waste export here, the feasibility study looked at a location in the Hillside Industrial Park. However, the actual land acquisition is still something that would have to be confirmed, and so that is not part of the $21 million capital cost there to construct the site. Obviously, this would result in some pretty significant changes to the solid waste system on the coast. All commercial traffic would be directed to this site, and the Seashell landfill would become the Seashell transfer station. The feasibility study assumed that we would barge and then truck waste to Cache Creek. The only other alternative option is down in the States. And so this is coming with some significant risk increases over our current system. Not only is building a new site going to come with increased permitting requirements, environmental assessments, all that sort of thing, but ultimately we would have a lot less control over the disposal of our waste because we would be beholden to the transportation costs to get our waste out of region, as well as the disposal costs at whatever site might take our garbage. All of this also comes with increased greenhouse gas emissions. So what is our kind of preferred option and the option that is in the draft solid waste management plan, and that is vertical expansion of Seashell landfill. Essentially, this is a 10-meter high retaining wall that would be built right around the site. We have an estimated lifespan of 30 years provided, and so this does actually become a bit of a long-term solution for the region here. And key to this is it actually gives us time to explore additional options here, whether that is a modified waste-to-energy option, or whether it's siting a new landfill on the coast, or whether it's deciding to export waste off coast and to develop that with sufficient time to minimize some of the costs and risks. One of the big cost drivers in this $33 million capital cost is the cost of aggregate. And so that cost does assume that we would be buying aggregate at market rates. However, if we are able to source aggregate for cheap, that could significantly lower that capital cost. Some of the benefits of this vertical expansion is that it gives us greater financial control over our disposal costs compared to waste export. There are less risks in terms of transport compared to waste export. They're essentially the same risks we have now because there's no change to the disposal locations. And there are also less greenhouse gas emissions. The emissions are essentially the same as what we have currently. And so here's sort of a cost comparison when it comes to our life cycle cost. And so this isn't necessarily the tip fee that you pay at the landfill currently, but this is the overall cost. So both user fee that you pay at the site as well as taxation. So you can see our current system there at roughly $326 a ton. Vertical expansion is a little bit more expensive. That's due to that loan repayment, which there's a few different ways that we could repay that loan. But compared to waste export, whether that's through a transfer station or whether it's the unplanned option, is significantly higher. And most of that cost is the actual operating cost, the transport and the disposal cost. And so usually that does result in some high tipping fees, as we see to our neighbors in the north and Catet. So with that all said, vertical expansion was the option recommended and chosen by the SCRD board to include in the draft plan because it has less risks, less operating costs, and lower greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, it comes with some pretty significant financial implications. The project would be built over 2 phases, where currently we're preparing to enter into our detailed design phase for this project once our solid waste management plan is confirmed and submitted to the province. And through that phase, we'll move from a Class C cost estimate all the way up to a Class A or B estimate prior to tendering for construction. So the overall construction costs there are estimated at $33.7 million, and like I said, that's mainly due to the cost of the aggregate or the fill material to construct the wall. Our feasibility study did look at a potential financing option, and that is a 15-year loan to the Municipal Finance Authority, and that'd work out to roughly $3.2 million per year to repay that. But as I said, an option may be to split that loan repayment to some extent between the user fee with a tip fee increase as well as a bit of taxation there. So there's still some options to be confirmed when we reach that stage in the project. And so this is sort of a summary here of the cost implications for vertical expansion and why the plan in terms of initiatives have been prioritized the way they are. You can see with our green bars there that both design and dark green as well as that loan repayment and the light green are pretty significant cost drivers here. I've also highlighted that our closure fund, that is money that we have to put aside every year into a reserve fund to eventually close the Seashell landfill, could be reduced significantly if we gain another 30 years of life. And so that does help offset some of those increased costs to some extent. But the dark blue bars are basically the new initiatives in the plan. And so you can see they're a somewhat small proportion relative to vertical expansion. And so touching on some of these strategies and actions that form those dark blue bars, you can see that our board has prioritized the first half of the plan to particularly focus on long-term disposal and construction of vertical expansion, as well as some key initiatives that really help kind of give us bang for our buck with things like greater enforcement capacity, helping to extend that lifespan, as well as improving some recycling and diversion opportunities. We've heard loud and clear as we've been out in the community that curbside recycling is still a very strong desire in the region. And also, we want to make sure that we have capacity to lobby and take part in any sort of provincial or federal engagement options around extended producer responsibility programs. The province is currently going to be looking at commercial recycling extended producer responsibility in 2028. And so we want to make sure that we have capacity to partake in that process to advocate for options that work for the region. And so you can see in the latter half of the plan, we've shifted some other key initiatives and strategies that are still very important and quite popular amongst the community, but don't necessarily kind of drive diversion or help extend the landfill's life. Our hope is that with these initial strategies in the first half of the plan, that 30 years of life from vertical expansion might eventually become 35 or 40 years of life if we start some of these changes right away. So this is just touching on in the green boxes there, some of these strategies that are prioritized for years 1 to 5. And again, there was strategy 9 being kind of the key strategy to focus on for vertical expansion. And so our engagement in the community has closed on April 10th there. We hosted 18 events and met with quite a few people, had a large number of survey responses online compared to some of the other engagement sessions that the SCRD has run. And by and large, some of the takeaways we've had are that the public does support vertical expansion. A key reason that we received from the community was not so much around the financials of it, but more so just wanting to take responsibility for our own garbage and to manage that on coast rather than dump it in someone else's backyard, essentially. And so we're here today to present the draft plan to Town of Gibsons Council, and we're hoping that if the council is supportive, that a letter might be offered to the SCRD here, because that will greatly help when we submit the plan to the province in terms of helping fast track their consideration, because that is going to be a key time constraint in development of vertical expansion, is getting our solid waste management plan approved by the province. And so thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for your presentation. I thought it was a really good report. It was easy to follow, understand, and I thank you for that as well. I mean, the first thing I thought was it's a shame that we spend so much money on garbage. You buy something, you pay for it, and you throw it away, and you pay for it again. It's too bad. Maybe in 30 years, there'll be other alternatives. Maybe there won't be any garbage, hopefully. The share of taxation with the tipping fees, which is a good one. I don't know what your process will be with that, but like honestly, if I go up to the dump, and I feel guilty every time I go up there and throw something in a bin, but I always, when I drive back through the payment thing, I always find it extremely inexpensive for what I'm doing, because I realize I'm putting stuff into the ground that that shouldn't be there. But so that, I think there's lots of room for increase in tipping fees, and it may, I mean, hopefully it doesn't encourage people to dump garbage in the woods. I know everyone says that, but maybe it'll encourage people to have less garbage or be more mindful of their garbage. The other thing was, I know it was called waste to energy, which is obviously burning garbage for fuel. So even though that's done, it's actually done in the area I grew up in Ontario. So the cost, basically what you were saying was the cost, and even with the savings, like the energy possibly savings is still like way too expensive just for the Sunshine Coast to bear the brunt of financially. Was that the decision?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, essentially those types of plants, the ones that are commercially viable, are so costly that any sort of payback from the sale of energy, when we have relatively clean and cheap energy here in BC, doesn't really make a strong financial case for it. And the population here on the coast of 33, 36,000 people just doesn't produce enough garbage to make a typically kind of in the $4 to $5 billion range in Europe or some of those big waste to energy plants. You know, the community couldn't sustain a kind of a project like that, essentially. Yeah, and even our neighbors in Metro Vancouver, you know, they've been trying to get a new waste to energy plant off the ground for years to complement their facility in Burnaby there, and they're even struggling to kind of make the case work in the region for not just financials, but also just kind of opposition to creating this big beast of a plant that needs garbage to be financially viable. But our plan, the draft plan, does include an initiative to continue to monitor waste to energy, because as you alluded to, maybe in 30 years' time, technologies progress to the point where there are more commercially viable small-scale waste to energy plants that might be feasible, because right now the ones that are small-scale are almost some of the sales pitches are a little bit too good to be true, and there's not really any of those plants operating very successfully that are in the more multi-million-dollar range compared to billion-dollar range. So we want to keep monitoring that as this plan gets implemented.
Okay, thank you. Any councillor have another question? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. In the year 1 to 5 strategies and actions, I was a bit surprised to see number 6, construction, demolition, and renovation waste prevention, not included in that 1 to 5 year strategy. Is there a barrier there that needs to be considered for that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we're quite fortunate here at the SCRD in that there are some pretty good diversion programs for construction waste, and so we don't see loads coming up to the landfill of construction bins with just everything thrown in it, because we don't take metal up there, we don't take wood waste. That all goes to Sailor Soils, just south of us. And Sailor Soils has been offering a service where they take those mixed loads of construction bins and sort all of that material as part of construction projects, so that whatever we're seeing up at the landfill is actually the garbage portion of construction waste. And so it's not actually as big of an issue as it was a number of years ago, because we have this private sector solution that's kind of working out in our favor. And combined with enforcement and increased enforcement, we can catch some of those last few outliers, which are more like small scale construction projects where everything's hidden in black bags and not your typical big bin that you see out front of a build.
Thank you. And thank you for the report. Is there any option of, for want of a better word, remining the dump site? Like, you know, past practices, everything went into the landfill. You know, metal, old cars, you name it, it just all went in there. Is there any option for remining to sort of, or is the cost of that prohibitive?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's certainly something we hear talk of, but more so in terms of decades or centuries into the future. And it may be that when we reach a sort of a scarcity on Earth in terms of some of these materials, it may be more commercially viable to mine a landfill. Because you're right, there are old cars, there's probably lots of metal buried in there from decades ago. There might be precious metals and electronics and all that sort of stuff, but it's not been proven to be commercially viable anywhere. Certainly not in North America or Europe that I've come across.
With respect to the garbage to fuel, I'm assuming that our regional district and other regional districts are working with the City of Vancouver that, rather than shipping garbage to Cache Creek or Washington State, it may be more viable to ship it to something we have better control over?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, so Metro Vancouver is also updating their solid waste management plan right now as well. And we have had conversations with them about some of their long-term planning. Currently, the Vancouver landfill, I think, has capacity to 2070. And then they send a mixture of the rest of the material to their waste-to-energy plant in Burnaby and then also the Cache Creek landfill. So I think their plan draft as it stands now is not looking to make any big investments in disposal capacity. But I think as their expiry date for the Vancouver landfill nears, there's probably going to be some interest from them to look at a solution that maybe will benefit the whole region and not just Vancouver, because I don't think anyone wants to send our waste down south to our neighbors, given the current political situation. And it's still quite costly to ship waste to Cache Creek. So unfortunately, there's no sort of near-term solutions that would work for the SCRD with our landfill reaching capacity in 2030. But I could see some appetite in the coming decades to collaborate together with sort of the Southwest BC regions on a regional solution one day.
Thank you. This regards actions on years from 6 to 10 years. And I see that improved invasive species management is down the line. So I understand in terms of impact on the landfill, it might not be significant, but there's a huge impact on the region. I mean, just in the last 10 years, I see the increase in Scotch broom, for example. So is this being considered? Is this in order of priority, or questions will be evaluated at the point when you get to the 6 years, or?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of that evaluation, there is a requirement to sort of do a 5-year check-in on the plan, kind of see how it's going, and that gives the board at the time the opportunity to look at those latter remaining 5 years of the plan and kind of help prioritize there. When it comes to invasive species, this is obviously a big challenge in the region, and when it comes to solid waste management, you can already landfill everything we are allowed to landfill, and you can compost everything that Salish will take for composting. And so what's left are these very hard to manage species, which usually require services that are not typically considered solid waste. And so it's not to say that the plan is structured the way it is to downplay the importance of invasive species, but when it comes to managing solid waste, the region is already doing everything that it possibly can. And so if there's a desire to do more and to do things differently, that's essentially an entirely new service within the regional district model, and not something that fits within the traditional kind of solid waste level of services. And so not to say, politicians and the community might not want to see action sooner than years 6 to 10, but the plan is structured the way it is, partly because it's maybe not the best place for invasive species management to reside, given that we can't really do anything more than what we're currently doing.
All right, thanks. I guess the cherry on top is the $3.6 million you have to pay in fees and bureaucracy, permits to governments, one government to another, which almost seems insane. But thanks for coming, Mark. And Remco, thank you for coming too. And we don't make any decisions, obviously, delegates, but we will discuss it, and you're seeking a letter of support, so we'll let you know ASAP.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and the next delegate is Pete Carson, and he's going to give us an update on the YMCA Youth Program. Thank Pete.
Hello, working? Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm Pete Carson, Director for Camping and Outdoor Education for the YMCA BC. Just before I get into the graphics lab, just a few big picture things about our organization. We've been delivering critical social services in BC for over 138 years. We employ over 2,400 staff, 800 volunteers, and serve 225,000 British Columbians every year as an organization. The biggest thing from the YMCA BC in this region is Camp Elphinstone. We've been here a long time. It's the majority of my responsibility. But we also run the programming out of the graphics lab in a partnership program with the SCRD in their building at the arena in Gibsons. We're a charity. We're committed to igniting belonging and helping people of all ages and stages achieve their best health and well-being. We partner with all levels of government to meet the needs of their communities and build a healthier, more connected BC. And so recently, the three Ys across the province have amalgamated into one entity. Elphinstone used to be part of, and same with the graphics lab, used to be part of the Vancouver YMCA. We've combined with the Kamloops YMCA and YMCA of Northern BC. And so we're a large organization. We also run childcare in the area. I know there's been controversy about that. I'm not connected to that part, so I can't answer any questions with that. But in this region, we run Camp Elphinstone, Langdale, and then the graphics lab. The graphics lab is a youth space designed as an art space for youth between the ages of like 8 and 17. Whoever wants to come can come. We have food available as sort of a lure to get kids in and create some positive relationships in a supervised area during times when they may not have much else in the way of supervision. So it's open from 3 to 7 every Monday to Friday. Right in front of our space is the basketball court behind the rec center there, and the skate park's pretty close. The food brings the youth in. In the space, we have a recording studio, a 3D printer, a bunch of computers with software to use the 3D printer and the recording studio. So we have like all the, like, I wouldn't call it state-of-the-art, but newish technology to use those spaces and engage the youth in forms of artistic creation. That those are the new ones. We also have like drawing supplies, coloring supplies, all sorts of more of the traditional art space as well. And so it's just like a positive space for youth to engage with safe adults in those times when maybe there's less programming for them. Any questions about that? Or should I just keep going? I'll just keep going.
Do you like teach people like, hey, this is a pencil?
We have pencils to give. We don't do the teaching. We do teach there is some basic instruction on there's some design software for how to create forms for the 3D printer. We teach people how to use the recording studio software. So right now we have 2 groups of youth that come in pretty regularly to use the recording studio and play with. We've got a drum kit, some guitars, bass guitar. They can have their music session and record it and keep that digital file and take it with them. And then we have a couple youth as well who are really connected to using the 3D printer, I think around 5, who come in regularly, create new forms and design stuff to print on the 3D printer. Some just take internet forms and do it on the 3D printer, some make their own. But it's engaging them in the technology that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. In terms of participant numbers, in 2025, we served about 228 individual visits. That's not individual youth, but that's the youth. A lot of those are individuals come back, but they visit that many times in that year. At this point in 2026, at the end of March, we had 925 visits. So we're on pace to significantly increase our visitation this year. A big part of that is our staffing this year, which everyone's probably not surprised to hear. Staffing is one of the hardest challenges in that space. There are 2 jobs. One's a 20-hour-a-week position, and the other's a 12-hour-a-week position. And when they come vacant, it takes usually about 3 to 4 months to find someone to fill the position. So there's been quite a bit of time in 2025 where the position was in, like we had one staff member, they tried to come 4 days a week, but they were on the 3 days a week schedule. And we did our best to keep it open as much as we could. But finding the right person to do it is hard. Currently, our key staff member is very good at developing relationships with youth, and that's really shown in the significant increase of numbers. To give you a concrete example is, so March 2025, we had 154 visits. March 2026, we had 378 visits. So a pretty significant increase, and we're building. I'd be surprised if we had less than 4,000 visits at the end of this year, given the direction we're going. Some of the things that bring the youth in are like pizza, movie, board game nights that Sarah's been organizing, as well as, like I said, the basketball and the skate parks bring people in. But we also partner with the Sunshine Coast Community Services Society and do every second week a Dungeons and Dragons meetup in the space to bring youth in. And some of those youth, they come in for that, but now they come in at other times to access the services. In terms of just make sure I get all the good things. In terms of challenges, the staffing has been the largest challenge in the space. And this year, I think due to both the increase in visitation, but also the cost of food, our ability to provide food for the youth in that space has been harder. Luckily, from a financial point of view, it's not a huge part of my presence in the Sunshine Coast, and the food cost can get I support it through Elphinstone a little bit to make sure that we have what we need with the increase in visitation, and kids come and they have there's microwavable popcorn, there's also frozen pizzas that we have in the freezer, that kind of stuff, and we can subsidize it a bit. But obviously the cost of food is something that's risen for everyone, and the combination with nearly doubling our visits and the cost of food rising, that's become a constraint. But we're really proud of the increased impact and basically relationships being built between the youth when they come to our center now. So that's general update. If you have any questions.
Well, thanks for that update. My pencil comment was because my 16-year-old daughter, I'm appalled at her handwriting. And that's how old I am, is that you used to practice that all the time and get marked on it. So now it looks like a chicken walked across her page. But and thank you for all your work. Obviously, it sounds awesome that the vegetation's going up. Part of summer, at least here, is if you're boating or anything, you go by the YMCA camp, you can hear the kids screaming and stuff like that. You kind of think, okay, like summer's here because they're having so much fun there. And the other thing I wanted to say is, don't feel free to reach out to like local businesses for food. I'm sure we have I mean, I would be more than happy to help on a day. And there's other restaurants, and we have quite a few eateries here. And I think most people that live here are very community-minded and would probably like to help, knowing that where it's going and it's helping youth, which is a important part today. So those are my thoughts. Does a Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your report. A couple of things, as our Deputy Mayor alluded to, food. It's a huge issue right now, and I know more and more people are struggling with it. Is there any opportunity for the Y to partner with like SD46 in their culinary arts program?
Great question. I have been in contact with SD46, particularly Elphinstone Secondary, and their culinary arts program mainly for giving opportunities for first jobs in kitchens to the students in that program, because we run a commercial kitchen at Camp Elphinstone, and do quite a significant volume of food out of there. I feel like there may have been. I'm new to the job. I'm just about a year and a half into my position. I feel like the kitchen environment wasn't necessarily one that the teachers felt comfortable sending their students to previous to my time at Elphinstone. I don't want to say anything about a time when I wasn't there, but just the sense I get from the conversations I've had, there's some hesitation. I've brought in a new food services manager. The Y overall has funded the position to be full-time year-round so that we can have a proper, a professional camp cook who comes in. The fella I've brought in from previous work at the Calgary Y at their summer camp, and he started, my relationship with him started when he worked in program for me as a camp counselor. And so he gets program, he has a very different environment in the kitchen, and I'm slowly warming the people who I've been in talks with to the kitchen environment being a better one for students. So we're working towards that. And it would be great to connect. I hadn't actually connected it to the graphics lab in my head as an opportunity. And I hadn't thought about that for local restaurants as well, where that could be a good, thank you. I'm going to recommend to the folks that focus on that full-time, maybe for our Friday night movie nights, doing some sort of rotating support, and could really help with those costs for us. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I think I was thinking more of the culinary arts students preparing stuff in the school that could be used in the lab. I know there is concern with students who receive food at school during the school term, and then during school breaks and holidays, and the summer particularly, that food is not available to them, and it falls back on the respective families to take up the slack, which sometimes is really challenging. In conversation with our student on council, Louise, she's involved in a student program. They're looking to try and find a way to fill that gap.
Yeah.
So I think there is potentially a unique opportunity with a youth program that's already in place, working with students and potentially the culinary team to,
It sounds like I should connect with
the
Louise.
dots is sort of where I'm going.
Absolutely. It sounds like I should connect with Louise, and actually we were talking at the start that I should do that for other reasons as well. So I'm going to take notes on that and follow up on that for sure. But yeah, and the food is a big part of it. And as an organization, we believe in whole person, community-based programming and solutions. And so if someone's coming in hungry, we want to feed them. And there shouldn't be any difference for anyone that comes into the center's doors, whether or not we give them food or what's available. And so that's very much mission oriented. And at least since I've been in the position, the organization is very or is quite connected to making decisions for mission first and then figuring out the rest after the fact. And so I feel like I have a lot of freedom to push for those more community-oriented things moving forward.
Thank you. What an asset to our community. This is incredible. It's such good work. I'm dialing into the studio aspect of what you offer. How do you get your gear? Do you have sponsorship connections, or, because that's obviously got to be a big expense, and of course kids are totally dialed into the best and latest.
Yeah, I don't think we have the best and latest. Most of the stuff we do have, I know Mayor White was involved with the start, and I assume he probably knows better than me on where the stuff came from at the beginning. But we do have a few people that give their time to maintain and keep things up to good quality start. And when I started last December, the actual like recording software and computer were down and it wasn't connecting to things, and we've managed to get some folks in, spend their time working on it, and then and now it's up and running and in good shape. Also, my facilities and assets manager at Elphinstone's really in the local music scene and knows a lot about it, and he's given a bit of time as well. So there's some people that basically we run off good feelings from people in the community, and they support us. We also have quite a few people who reach out to do sessions with the youth who volunteer their time. We've got a couple people who have been communicating about wanting to do like comic or graphic novel design and writing, and doing workshops with the youth in that way as well. So there's a lot of variety and different ways to, just any way to connect youth with art is sort of the goal.
We have such a great, artistic community. It's fabulous that people are, there to donate their time and expertise. So it's great to hear. Yeah, thank you. It's inspiring and exciting.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the report. And I think we genuinely thank you and everybody working there for all your efforts and doing what you do.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to 4.1, and we'll turn to the Director of Finance for the Armors Beach project. I'm not sure, I've probably said this 100 times, but I'm a proponent of people being prepared and staff not rereading the entire report. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to highlight within the report, just for anything before we get on to some discussion. And as someone that actually voted against it, one of the votes, I'm actually in favor of the recommendations. But if there's anything either of you would like to touch on, I'd like to apologize to the Director of Infrastructure Services because I didn't email you the questions after you sent that thing, which I asked to, but this report kind of like takes care of all that anyway, so my apologies for not getting to you, but anyway, take it away.
Deputy Mayor Lumley, it would be nice to have the presentation. Ricardo Mondragon, who did the project design, is with us today.
Okay.
And there's a lot he can contribute himself that's not in the report, and it's not necessarily in the pictures.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. And just a kind of a quick note, as you may know, I have a kind of a strong accent. So please stop me anytime if something I say is not clear. The project is located at the north end of the town and represents the second phase of Armors Beach. Thank you. And it's conceived as an extension beyond the natural boundaries of the shoreline. reaching into the water to create a new public space. This proposal is guided by three key ideas. First, year-round use, a permanent durable structure designed to serve the community over time. Second, all tides, embracing the natural tide variation of up to 5 meters and making it part of the experience. And third, all people and activities, creating a place to walk, swim, paddle, dive, and simply spend time by the water. Next page, please. I would like to begin by showing that Armour's Beach project design offers something for everyone. It is a walking loop that supports multiple activities while framing and protecting a swimming area. Today, the usable guiding space at the beach is quite limited. There is no shade along the shoreline, aside from the gazebo at the harbor. Recognizing this need, the project begins with 2 pavilions located on each side of the site. The North Pavilion, slightly larger, connects to the shore to a series of floating platforms through a ramp. These platforms are designed not only for movement, but also for gathering, allowing people to walk, pause, sit, or access the water. They are wide enough to support multiple uses at the same time. At the center, 6 swimming lanes extend outward. At low tide, they are approximately 50 meters long, and during king tides, they extend up to 100 meters. This creates a unique conditions where the experience of swimming changes throughout the day. On the southeast side, a concrete floating platform provides a flexible open space. This area can host activities such as yoga, tai chi, or marine education, and it also includes an accessible sauna, a diving platform, and a secondary pavilion. This area connected back to the shore through a sequence of floating platforms and ramps designed to maintain a slope of less than 5% for most tidal conditions, ensuring accessibility. Additionally, the project envisions the use of the surrounding area by paddlers and swimmers on open water. Along the seawalk, there is a design, on the land side, 2 new elements are included. Along the seawalk, there is a design food truck area, creating an active social node, and halfway up the slope, a comfort station with 4 washroom changing rooms and 3 outdoor showers. At the same time, most of the existing infrastructure is preserved, including the accessible washrooms, the stairs to the beach, the stone retaining walls, and the landscape. Next page, please. This picture shows the project from south to north, and they illustrate how the design works with the tide. The top picture represents high tide, where the most pathways become level and continuous, creating a long, calm swimming area. The bottom picture shows low tide, where the structure adapts and reveals more variation in levels and spatial relationships. Rather than resisting the tide, the project embraces it, creating a dynamic environment that changes throughout the day and seasons. Next page, please. The project can be understood as one continuous structure, divided by water into 2 main pavilions. The North Pavilion accommodates approximately 100 people, and the South Pavilion around 60 people. Both are fixed decks supported on piles. An important feature is the space underneath them. These areas create shaded zones directly on the sandy beach, usable approximately 60% of the time, depending on the tide. This effectively doubles the shaded gathering space and allows people to experience the waterfront in different ways, above, below, and at the water level. One of the pavilions is envisioned as a space offered to the First Nations, a clean canvas for art, signage, and cultural expression. This creates an opportunity for meaningful presence and a fusion of cultures as part of the project. Next page, please. Thank you. This U-shaped portion of the project is designed to remain in the water at all times. It includes several elements that directly connect people to the ocean, since 6 swimming lanes, an accessible entry ramp into the water. It also provides a generous open platform connected to a pavilion and accessible sauna. It has 3 ladders located around the platform for safe and easy access. And for more adventure users, a 3-meter diving platform is included. This area is both active and flexible, supporting structured activities as well as an informal use. Next page, please. Overall, the project is designed to make the most of the available space while building on how the site is already used. It supports existing community activities such as swimming, walking, paddling, and gathering, and it also opens the door to new possibilities: fitness classes, marine education, scuba diving, small events, and even concerts. The goal is to create a flexible and inclusive waterfront space, one that evolves with the community and remains active throughout the year. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I'm going to, I found that slide kind of confusing, just because it's, I'm just not sure where that is. Because all your other slides point towards Keats Island. That seems to point, I'm not sure where. But I've got a bunch of questions on the whole report, but I think I'm going to defer to council before I, hopefully some of you will probably have a pick up on the same questions I might have, so I'll let you guys take the floor. But does anyone have any questions? Councillor DeAndre?
Thank you. I have also a comment, if I may. I appreciate the attempt of doing something like that. I know it's going to be costly, but I was lucky enough to grow up in a beach country that life revolves around the beach, and you don't see anybody miserable when they are at the beach. And right now we are facing mental health and even physical health. We have a very old population, and we have youth. So I love anything that could connect people and bring, a lot of a good energy, but also able to exercise. One thing that actually, this seems very narrow, but I'm sure this might be just the design that we are seeing here. How, I was thinking, if people are, when people swim, some people are really serious about that. They don't want any ball coming or something. How are you going to separate kids playing ball or something from the people swimming? Right now it seems very narrow, what they would be. I'm just trying to picture.
It looks narrow because it's pretty long project.
Okay.
There are two reasons why, but it's the same width as the entire lot of Armour's Beach, which is around 100 feet, if I remember well, 100 something, by 300 feet long, approximately. So it's a lot of room there. The 6 swimming lanes are considered to not to cover the entire width of the area. It allows as well to leave area for just to hang around, like not for like a training purposes, no. So we can have 6 or even maybe depends on how much room we want to leave in the for everyone else, but could be only 5 swimming lanes and even increase the area. But it's quite big space, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson? Or
Yeah, thank you. What provisions, I don't want to get into minutia, this early on, but, so maybe this is an unfair question, but are there provisions that were considered in the design materials for things like vandalism and tagging and, fair question, right? Stainless materials, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there are some things consider to prevent and to like all materials like a high resistance and there are some considerations on that as well. Yep, yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Ricardo, for the presentation. And, I love the concept of what you've designed. I like your work, pure and simple. But, I've seen, I used to live down the beach from there. So I know how popular Armour's Beach can be. And my concern, and I know we're embarking on a parking and traffic study, but my big concern is, you mentioned 100 people here and 60 people there, and, you get 4 kids and a mom or the babysitter, numbers sort of grow. And I'm just concerned as to how people access the space. Parking, I have a niece and she's got 3 children, the eldest is 7. She can't drop off her kids and go find a place to park. So, and,
I'm just gonna, Councillor Cole, I'm just gonna interject, sorry. I think just maybe ask questions of design. I think the parking might come, I think that's with
that's fine.
the staff report, I think. We'll just focus maybe on the design right now.
well, where I was going is also the accessibility. I appreciate the great lengths you've gone to with the ramps to, to get people who have mobility issues down to water level, which is something that the community hasn't been able to offer people. So I really applaud that. But again, it circles back to, drop-off, parking, handy dart. You mentioned showers and washrooms. I don't know how accessible they would be in their current location for someone in a manual wheelchair. So, and then there's wheelchair parking because someone who is going to the beach may not be using their regular wheelchair. They'd be bringing a wheelchair that they wouldn't care about it getting wet. So there are just some of those issues. I love the look of the project, but some of the logistics, like, where can a person with mobility issues actually get to the washrooms and showers that were mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, definitely parking, it's an issue that needs to be addressed separately. And in terms of the design, fortunately, the existing washrooms, which have 2 washrooms and showers, are accessible and are on the sidewalk level. So the new washroom building won't be accessible because we are meeting that need where it should be, like right there on the water. So at least, and we can have access to the harbor area, which is a longer way, but or figure out something through Marine straight from Marine Drive. But at least once you are there, which again there are a few options to go there, everything is accessible in that area. Yeah, same thing. The food truck will be right there, and at the seawalk level. So it will be the food truck, the washroom accessibles, and the access to the accessible ramps as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm gonna go back to the Director of Finance then, if you'd like to speak to this report.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Lumley. I'll keep it brief, but I'll touch on all the pieces. So this report is to update council on the Armour's Beach project as it's evolved, and the report includes information on the town's swim, drink, fish funding application, which is core to all of this, and the opportunity inspired us to get involved at the town. Public engagement, possibly, depending on council's decisions after this, and the alternative approval process step preparations. So at the bottom of first page of the report, the project as it is right now is listed in the town's 2026 project listings and in Financial Plan 2026-2030 for its current $7 million project scope and budget based on 80-20% cost sharing. So the swim, drink, fish contribution of $5.6 million and town debt funding of $1.4 million. We have been doing a lot of work with swim, drink, fish since the application was filed at the end of January, based on this preliminary design presentation. And one of the things they felt strongly about, and it's reflected in your questions, we answered a lot of their questions. In the end, they decided that a feasibility study for this project was required to answer all these questions and for the staff working on this project to think through all aspects, because from their perspective, as they really like this and they don't want to get involved further if there are undisclosed showstoppers connected with this project, things you can't work around. Or, yeah, I'll leave it at that because we'll touch on it a bit more here. So, B of the report, scope of Armours Beach project. Okay, we have the presentation. The feasibility study is also challenging us to make sure that we get the overall budget right now. Swim, Drink, Fish is very anxious that if they decide that they're going to be a funder, that is truly, their share is truly going to get the job done along with the towns. They're not interested in people coming back for more money. And as part of that, as early as May 5th, this project would need the support of council by readings of the loan authorization bylaw so that process can get underway. And it would essentially establish the upper debt limit. So we have to be confident in our overall budget. C, Armours Beach project feasibility study. I guess I should run through these three things. I think council and Swim, Drink, Fish feel the same way. One, confirm that no items exist that fundamentally prevent the Armours Beach project. Two, ensure that all major Armours Beach project risks have been identified and plans are in place to avoid and mitigate those risks so the project can be completed and operated. Three, ensure the Armours Beach project as presented has been designed and costed to the extent necessary so it can be built as budgeted with no additional funding. They approved the table of contents for the feasibility study, and one core section of it was all about user experience. So we have to look at everything as though we're the users, and how does that work? So parking's in there. Somebody trying to navigate to this with a wheelchair is one of those things we'd look at. What does it look like with families? What does it look like with packs of teenagers? Like, how would this all work? And what do you need parks and from a recreation perspective to operate this? Now, out of the feasibility study, there are some key things that have been answered, which the team shares in this report. One is we have eelgrass down there on the seabed, and we have to be very careful about where we site this facility. So the we have marine engineering done on this site that was part of the foreshore project. So we know all about the wave actions and storms and all of that great stuff. And it covered Armours Beach. We're very lucky that it did, because that's a lot of expensive work. That went to the marine structural design engineers who are vetting the design and so on. And they came out to us and said, yeah, this is constructible, but if you want this thing to last, this has to be pilings. So no anchoring systems. And they also pointed out where we are, that'll actually be better for the environment. So we have detailed mapping of where the eelgrass is, and although it's not exactly this design, it's very similar. They've picked out the location where to park this thing, where as far as we can tell, it won't impact on the eelgrass, the pilings or the things that are up floating on top. So that was a great thing to know, because that was one thing that Swim, Drink, Fish and the Squamish Nation have asked most of their questions about eelgrass on the environmental side. I've touched on constructability and resilience. We've found the same thing with aquifer considerations. However, if this is approved by council, gets funded by everybody, there probably will still have to be some drilling there because the town actually doesn't know a lot about the aquifer out in the waters off Armour's Beach. But it's not expected that there'd be any problem with the pilings as laid out in the current design. There's archaeological cultural work, and other than that, we're in the process of drafting an application ready to put it in. We won't know how that works out until it's done. However, I understand that many of the possible outcomes, there are accepted ways to work around them. The more difficult the outcomes, funnily enough, the more expensive the solution. But we expect that will work out. On the operations safety side, it's been established that under lower regulation industry standards, lifeguard services at Armour's Beach are not required. They're not required now at any of our town beaches, nor would they there. However, we would be, and this is advice from MIABC, responsible for working through the life-saving societies, it's international, global, but the Canadian Arms standards of practice, and we've looked at that as part of the feasibility study. And there's a whole bunch of things to do with signage and buoys and all the things you can imagine that crop up if you don't have lifeguards there. Yeah, I won't go further on that. The point is it provides options. You could choose to spend more money and have lifeguards or not. It's be up to the town later in this process to decide. Finally, on the regulatory site side, we are at the point where there's a BC lease that covers all town waterfront off the land out 300 meters roughly. That's one lease. And then there's a series of individual leases on top of that, I guess is the way of looking at it, with BC. Armour's Beach has one of those. So that one is up for renewal. And Swim Drink Fish, as part of their awards, wants to see that there's formal agreement there for at least 25 years. So we had a 30-year lease. We're going to renew for a 30-year lease. The area will have to be bigger, but it will fit within the all-town sector so that this beach will have a home legally, or this facility. We're working with the Squamish Nation. I think they've been posing questions as quickly as we provide new information for them. I think we have a ways to go in terms of providing information, but some of the stuff that's coming out of the feasibility study is finally addressing the questions they're asking in a serious way. They ask a question and we've got a straight answer. They knew that we had work to do when they first asked them. Community engagement. So we are hoping to take this package and the other material that's being gathered through the feasibility study. There's a section of it that's actually set up as the pre-packaging of the public engagement materials. We're hoping to start that with the public later in May and go through June. And while we're doing it in that period, explain about the funding for this project. And there would be an alternative approval process. So if they're in favor, they don't have to do anything. If they're not in favor, they would need to register their vote at Town Hall in July. The public engagement would stop at the end of June when this voting started. So at that point, the town would just be silent on promoting the project at all. Hopefully with a positive vote in August, that fits in with the hopes of Swim Drink Fish. That if they select the town, then the town would be in a position to start making the formal agreement with them this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we've been through the eelgrass discussions before, and I don't know if the CAO wants to touch on this, but from past discussions, even for the working area of the harbor and so on and so forth, I know that eelgrass can be environmentally moved, right? Like it can be satisfied. Like if, I'm not sure if that's the case here, but is that a possibility, and is that adding to the expense, or is that part of the project?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the eelgrass, that's correct. There's the eelgrass. Some areas in Gibsons was planted there as part of compensation for disruption to the natural system somewhere else. And I think the three significant areas that we have eelgrass at the moment is just outside of the breakwater, probably the biggest concentration. And in that area, the Marine Education Center, I think in last year's report, talked about, they identified an opportunity to replant some of the sort of bald spots in those spaces. So that's an example. So for Armour's Beach, from the very first day, we sort of fresh on our minds, this recommendation from the Marine Education Center, have kind of volunteered the option of just planting additional eelgrass regardless, to sort of more than a symbolic replacement, but just know that despite the relatively healthy gardens that we have, we could have more, and we should aim to have a bigger concentration of that. Relatedly, later this spring or early summer, we're hoping to have a report to council about the recreation water lease that the director was referring to, in particular Schedule A. And in that schedule, it has the mapped out areas of eelgrass, and we'll be asking council to expand the conservation areas on a more permanent basis. So it's a bit of a long-winded response, but yes, we think it's important to start planning for additional grass plantings, and the Marine Education Center is very supportive of it, and we would work with those folks to identify the best spots to do that.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to council. I had one other question. I guess it's part of the feasibility study, but it's, I lived on the beach for a time there, and I know during the king tides, where I lived, there was a cement wall, and some nights it'd be hard to sleep because the logs. So what happens is when the king tides come in and the logs get swept off the beach, they just get crashed into the walls, like fairly large logs. So as part of the feasibility study, when you say an engineer says they can build it, and is that do we have the assurances? Like, is the engineer going to sign off on that? Say some event happens where it's damaged, or I mean, it's going to cost $7 million. I mean, if something happens to that pavilion and it gets damaged, is that something that the town can rely on a letter of an engineer that's going to sign off on the construction and the resiliency of it? Because it does get kind of gnarly down there, and we currently take out the float now. I mean, because it gets damaged in the storms. So is that something? Is that my question? Is that going to be sought after from the town or as part of this agreement?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Lumley, there's three aspects here. Staff from different perspectives, all the way from Parks up, early on said, we don't want any part of something that's movable and seasonal. It will be more solid and safe if it's built to be permanent. So we started with that approach. Now with the marine structural engineers that we're working with right now, I mean, their primary focus is to make sure that structure will be safe and it will survive storms and those kinds of things. I haven't heard anything myself of people discussing what happens with deadheads and things wandering around. Is there ways you build protection? I haven't heard anything. So I will take that back and make sure that that's part of the discussion. What do we do? MIABC understands to some extent what we're up to. They didn't comment on the property insurance angle, but of course, we would be running to them looking for restitution, so they wouldn't be. I remember one brief discussion with what happens if somebody drives a boat into this thing or that kind of stuff, but I think we need to do some more work there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the question was kind of in the same vein as, say, the aquifer. I mean, although it's not as significant, but I mean, if you're gonna build there, some engineer's gonna sign off on it. If you're gonna build that, it'd be nice to have some sort of assurances from an engineering perspective that it can take the storms if we have those studies, so.
They're definitely going to sign off on the structure as is, but yeah, since we haven't had them build any protection ring,
Yeah.
they certainly wouldn't sign off on that.
Okay. I'm gonna go to council. Councilor Kroll?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had sort of a similar question to Councillor Lumley's because, looking at the design of this, and you look at what happened to the White Rock Pier a couple of years ago in a weather event where boats just broke off their mooring and crashed in, and they took out a huge section of it. So I think it's something we need to be prudent in moving forward on. And I appreciate greatly the length and depth that staff have gone to in the reports that have been brought to us so far. And I trust that time and those hours are being included into the cost of this project moving forward, that this isn't just work that's happening and eating up time staff, and we're not going to be able to recover these costs.
Yes, through Deputy Mayor Lumley. There are certainly some costs, third-party costs, where we're starting to accumulate them as something that could be capitalized to the project. But we're just at that stage now. All the other monies we've spent, which are not being a lot, but a lot of staff time, is what I was taught to consider walking around money. So you don't get the staff time back from anyone. The staff are a resource provided by the operating budget, and we're choosing to allocate staff time and staff overtime to move a project like this along. It won't be the earliest we've heard that there will be a decision from Swim Drink Fish would be May. But certainly once they've reached their decision, they've explained to us in their process that once they've said they're in, and you do a starter memorandum of understanding with them, at that point, they're there for their 80% of whatever it is we're all doing together. But yeah, staff time is a separate item, for sure. It's on us.
Councillor DeAndre.
Thank you. Talking about wave impact and storms, I know we have the restoration project, right? The foreshore restoration, which intends to reduce wave impact. So I'm wondering if there's any calculation how much this could help this project in particular.
Through the Deputy Mayor, so the foreshore restoration project, the area that we're focusing on is closer to the Gibsons, to the wharf, the public wharf, between the Coles Marine Access and the wharf. So it really wouldn't have any direct impact on this site. Excuse me. I can say though that the all of the wave analysis that was completed in support of that project has been very relevant for this as well, and we have passed all of that data on to the engineers who would be designing this. But just given the length of the structure and how far out, the type of foreshore work that we're doing, wave mitigation, wouldn't really be applicable in this area just because we have to be working within the intertidal zone rather than into the deeper water.
Director Wallace.
Deputy Mayor, as part of the project budget, there are two allocations in there on the environment. So there is a chunk of money for restoration work if that proves necessary, or as the CAO pointed out, as a contribution to the environment at large, whether it's eelgrass or whatever else is planted working with the Marine Education Center, Blue Axe Society. There's also budgeted in there the environmental monitoring work while the project's being done, in case anyone forgot that the pilings aren't supposed to go to the eelgrass, that kind of monitoring. And we've built in there some funding for the subsequent years to supplement that contract with the Education Center, Blue Act, so that they will be doing more extensive monitoring in the project area. Because if you didn't understand what you're doing and you had bad effects that nobody knew about to start with, you'll pick them up within the first couple of years.
I have another question, if I may, I think it would be probably for Director Wallace. The funding model, I know that when I looked at the organization, like drink, it's in the name, it's part of it, right? Like there's no funding. Like my question is any part of the funding that we're getting is to improve like water quality or you know what I'm driving at, right? Like, which would be, I mean, we've got the Nicholas Sontag, it's the ocean. I mean, none of this money's going to be allocated to like some sort of like water defense program or something where we're, so I know you said no already, but would you like to?
Yes, Deputy Mayor. No, the money from Swim Drink Fish, funded by Western Family Foundation, is looking at it a slightly different way. For those who are awarded a prize, it's an award for the fact that you've done enough work in your community that the water off your urban area beaches are actually clean enough to swim in. So very early on in this process, in the original application, we had to submit all our water quality testing results for the last 5 years, and they came back for more. And that was part of what got us out of the long list interviewing process into the short list. Yeah, no, it's an award. They want to show that the First Nations or local governments that have made the efforts for the sites, they'd like to have some recreational infrastructure. You have to have done a pretty good job to be in on this.
Thank you. I know we've got a lot of reports to hear, and some of them, I think there's going to be discussion in some of the reports as well. So this is mainly a process, I guess. Nothing's on the table right now, but I was looking at the recommendations. I just wanted to clarify that the design, so the feasibility study has not been finished yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the way the first recommendation reads is that council's like putting the design into the feasibility study. Is that how I read that? It's updating the feasibility study with these design?
Yeah, it's intended to say, okay, this design is reasonable. You can make changes for what came out of the feasibility study. You can make any changes, reasonable changes from anywhere, Squamish Nation, input from the public engagement in. Sorry, yeah, no. This is your permission to take this
to the
and
public.
make reasonable changes to it, including the public's. And in essence, it's okay for staff to take this out into public engagement as it is now.
So would one of those reasonable changes be if you wanted to add something to this, the feasibility study, like say that Contingency, like, I don't know if, like, what finance has thought about a potential contingency. So it's a big project, it's important, it's $7 million, and like, we're asking taxpayers to borrow 1.4. Is there a contingency in place? Like, should we add something to this that says, hey, listen, if this ends up being like $10 million, we can't be on the hook for the difference. So is there something that we can put in this as well before we take it to the public? Is that something that's possible?
Yes, Deputy Mayor. So
Okay.
the feasibility study is to be completed and sent to Swim Drink Fish April 30th. And subject to this committee's recommendation, council will get readings of the loan authorization bylaw on May 5th. So the current budget, the $7 million, has a 35% contingency in it right now. And as part of updating the budget, so we're getting new information from the guys working on the land structures, we're getting new information from the marine engineering design team and a costed budget there. We'll take that and we'll review what the contingencies need to be for those elements. And then we're going to consider a contingency for time. Because it's great we approve this now, but like, it won't all be done for 2 years, and costs will go up while we're waiting for this to happen. So there will be definitely a really solid contingency there. And
Presented on May 5th? Was that your idea?
yes, and you would see that then.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Councillor DeAndretti?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to make the recommendations. I think this project has so much scrutiny that all the questions will be answered, and more questions will come. So I feel a big degree of confidence that we're going to be looking at all the possible issues. And I also feel I would love to see council supporting that, because this is not the final decision anyways. I know it's a big sum of funding, but we're going to take to the public, and it's up to the public to really decide. I think we have the opportunity, and I would love to. So I'm moving.
So you're moving the recommendations?
I'm moving all the
three?
recommendations, yes.
Okay. You're seconding, Councillor Crowell? Your second and discussion? Okay. So a motion, and it's been seconded by Councillor Crowell. Ask away.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Lumley was running around inside my head, because a lot of the questions he just brought forward in his last address to the Director of Finance covered a lot of the things. Obviously, and I support Councillor D'Andretti, like, we need to see what the public's reaction to this is going to be. You know, the Armours Beach project has been on the books, you know, as long as I've lived in Gibsons. We've replaced docks that have been broken up in storms. We have people screaming that there's not enough space for swimming on low tide. So it's ticking a lot of boxes. And I do appreciate, you know, $7 million sounds like a lot of money, but, you know, you can't even buy a condo for $1 million this year or these days. So, you know, costs are a concern. So hopefully, with all the due diligence that is being done, we will have a realistic cost before we have to go to the public and say, we want 1.4 million or we need 2.1 million. So I'm, you know, seconding this motion based on that, on the assurance from staff that we're walking into this with our eyes wide open.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. So to you, Deputy Mayor, May 5th would be when we would have more concentrated questions on just the process of loan and budgets and budget sign-off and overruns and so on. Is that where we're going to start to get a bit granular into those types of questions?
I think that's what we heard from the Director of Finance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And even after May 5th, there'll be further rounds of discussion and more granular detail.
Yeah, we're just moving the process along here today, basically. And the fact that, and I know you guys have both touched on it, I'm sure you're aware of it too. It's, the great thing about this is the public engagement part, right? So, you know what? Makes probably little difference what somebody might, their opinion might be. It's nice that when you take it to the public and they get a voice on a project like this. So I'm gonna take a vote now. Are you guys okay with that? All in favor? Okay, so there you go. Really? Is it short?
Very short. I just want to make the comment
Time's up.
because
No.
one thing that I didn't really hear the table, and I wanted to say thank you so much for the design. I want to praise the architect because it's a beautiful design, and I think it consider a lot of important aspects, not only our geography, but wave impacts and leisure and so on. So I just want to thank you because it's phenomenal. Hopefully, it will endure all the challenges and will get built. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you have to change that picture. This is one thing, if there's one thing that's gonna happen at public engagement, is people are gonna get confused. So let's take the confusion away and, you know, anyway, just point it towards Keats Island. I think that'd be the benefit of that. Okay, so we're moving on. This is, okay, hold on one second. You want to take a 10-minute break? This is, we're going to do reports. That's why everyone's here, is to listen to these staff reports. Can we take a 5-minute break? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so we'll recess for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
let's get on with the good stuff. Director of Planning, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. So overall, Q1 in planning and development reflects a steady quarter focused on implementing our newly adopted OCP and zoning bylaws while continuing to manage development activity and service delivery across planning, building, bylaw, and business licensing. So this quarter marks that important transition from policy development to implementation. Under the Housing Accelerator Fund, Council has seen this information before, but high level, all 6 major initiatives are now complete. We met the year 2 housing targets and slightly exceeded them. Now we're entering into year 3 with a target of 100 units, housing units to deliver. We had a strong performance in missing middle and affordable housing, but the gap remains in the larger multi-unit housing, so over 4 stories. Something to highlight in the accessibility section is that we did apply for 2 grants, one for $25,000, one for $500,000. We did receive the $25,000 grant, so that is exciting. So we get to do some upgrades to Town Hall to make it more accessible. In terms of planning activity this quarter reflects a slower intake, but continued processing of applications. So we're down new applications compared to previous years, and only 8 of them advanced towards building permits. And so there's a higher number of withdrawn applications or expired applications. And what we're hearing from those that are withdrawing applications is that development costs are higher. External funding is challenging to receive. Some of them had applied for CMHC funding or financing, and that hasn't come through yet, so that's a challenge. And then the bylaw changes remove the need for some applications, so that's good. So we're seeing fewer new applications and more withdrawals reflecting broader market conditions rather than local policy barriers. In the building department, activity remains modest in Q1. We got 10 permit applications with a $2.1 million construction value. 7 permits were issued and no dwelling units completed. So this reflects timing of projects rather than a lack of approved development. Several larger projects are still working through permitting and financing. Bylaw enforcement. Bylaw activity increased this quarter, particularly in complaints. So we had 176 complaints this quarter, up from 157 last year. 93 notices were issued, and this is down because we had a very mild winter. So snow removal is where tickets go out quite quickly. Notable enforcement examples are the illegal dumping case was successfully investigated, so that was on Gospel Rock. And the bylaw team were very proactive in preventing a drifting sailboat from capsizing, so that's great news. But complaint volume is increasing, and enforcement remains proactive and responsive. In terms of business licensing, we are at 504 business licenses issued this quarter, and revenue has increased by almost 12,000. And bylaw adopted, or council adopted a new animal control bylaw, which is exciting. So that's going to be new. Yeah, so there's the highlight from planning and development. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report. I guess no one should be surprised that permits and so on and so forth are down just because of the nature of the economy right now. I mean, just looking at the differences, not only just in the permit revenue, but in the value of permits being issued, it's like quite a stark comparison. So obviously the permits being issued to build things are probably smaller projects, right, than before. But I did have a couple questions, and then I'm going to ask council if they have some. And I know the bylaw officer, there she is, she might want to, I don't know if she can speak to this, or if you'd like to speak to this. Okay, so you were digging through garbage, right? And you found the guy's name, or were you both on this? Like, was it the two of you? Because I'm going to be a little bit facetious here, but there's two of you that were working on this?
Yes, so over the course of a year, we had 9 different incidents on a monthly basis, pretty much. Bags being thrown over. So if we could get down safely, we'd bring them back up, take them up to Public Works, dump everything out to go through it, try and find something. And on the 10th occasion, that's when we did.
Okay, so first of all, I applaud your efforts. You know, I probably would have just quit my job at that point and moved on. But so when I was reading this, the astonishing thing is that it's a $575 fine. Like, there's no pollution act. There's nothing that can be done. Like,
No, well, the town's bylaw fine is only $100. That's why we wanted to call in Conservation Service, and that was under the Environmental Act. It's their fine.
still, it seems, anyway. But thanks, I mean, it's astonishing that people would do this. And then my other question was, is it just a mere fact of, so the complaints are up, but the bylaw notices issued were down? How does that correlation kind of work? Like,
Not-
there's more like, the complaints are just silly and a waste of your time, or?
No, we're not issuing tickets for every complaint file. Like,
Okay.
if we can gain some sort of compliance, then there's no tickets
Then you're
being
happy.
issued. I think the Director of Planning just said that they were down this quarter because we had no snow events. So previous winters, if you don't clear the sidewalk, that's when the tickets are being issued, and we just didn't have any this year.
So certain things you just issue tickets, other ones you just work it out with them?
Mainly parking.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to ask council if they have any questions. Councillor Thompson?
I just feel like it was last quarter you guys had like heroic efforts and way to go on this sailboat. I can imagine the owners were unbelievably grateful to the work you did with that.
I hope so.
Yeah, well done.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor DeAndrea?
I have two questions. One is just following up on the garbage. So the report says requiring the removal, but did he remove?
Yes, this individual, as part of the conditions, was required to go and take every single piece back, which he did. Yeah. And given the slope and the difficulty, I guess it would have been quite a job.
Good job. I was just very curious. There are 24 public health hazards, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what it is really.
I'll just talk briefly about this because it's an ongoing investigation with the RCMP. So these are all individual reports that were made to us, but it's not a bylaw issue. And this is to do with public defecation. Yeah. So first of all, it's not a bylaw issue because we don't have a bylaw that says you can't urinate or defecate in public. And secondly, we think we've identified the person responsible, and that has now been given to the RCMP, so we'll let them deal with that. Okay?
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll keep this really brief. Quarter one was fairly typical for the infrastructure department, which is to say busy. Internally in the office, we were highlights, I guess, for the quarter, we're busy with budget support, focusing on some engineering studies specific to the wastewater system, construction at Skyline Drive progressing throughout the quarter, as well as some offsite work for some development properties. And we were involved with a number of grant applications, most of which was the Swim Drink Fish project that was discussed in depth earlier. Outside the office with our public works, parks, wastewater treatment and water operators, fairly typical winter operations, aside from the total absence of snow plowing this year, which was a pleasant surprise. And of note at the wastewater treatment plant, and we had in the previous quarter mentioned that we were purchasing a vac trailer to help with the grease issue at the treatment plant. We received that in quarter one, put it to work, and I think the feedback I'd heard is that within a few weeks it had already paid for itself in saving the cost of having to mobilize a unit from the city. So that was some welcome news as well. I'll just look to calendar your committee for any questions on the report. Thank you.
Thanks for your report, and thanks for the pictures, because I know you guys are embroiled in a lot of like larger kind of like big projects, and you kind of get an idea of like how much work goes into some of this infrastructure maintenance and improvement. So I think so. Congrats to you guys. Does Councillor Kroll has a question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With reference to the work on Skyline and the water main replacement and the repaving, what sort of public feedback have you had, if any?
Through the Deputy Mayor, as far as feedback that I've got directly to me has been minimal. There's been, I know that Sasha, our engineering technician, has been on site, and she gets more of the direct feedback from the residents, or I get feedback kind of through the contractor. Most of it has been positive in terms of just how the contractor has been on site, and the residents there recognize the disruption, but from the impression that I've received from the comments and that have come directly and through the contractor and through Sasha have been that the project has been well received, and residents are looking forward to the work being done and the road being paved and kind of getting back to normal life. But it seems as though everybody's been, for the most part, reasonable about the disruption and understand that it's part of the process and that the end result will be improvement.
Thank you. I was quite happy to see the other effective conservation measures registration, and I went on the website, but I could only see the little parks and the Charman forest and the conservation area. I see it green, but I didn't see highlighted, so I don't know if it's me or there's a reason. Thank you.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to show you on the screen, because it is, the layers don't show up if you zoom in quite far. And, here we are. So when you click on the link that I had shared in the report, and then you scroll your way to Gibsons, if you get at this granular level, you'll not see them. And I'll speak to the Gospel Rock in a second. And I will provide feedback to the database too on these issues that have come up. But if you were to click on the parcel itself, then it'll tell you here the features of when it was registered, and you can also put in the coordinate information here under this toggle switch. So these are the two parcels that are associated with Charman lands. So there's 1 and 2. Oh, this isn't. Does that answer that question?
Oh, I'm not sure. I have to go back to that, because I was trying to see the name and I couldn't. And now my map disappeared.
And maybe while you're looking for that, I'll answer the other question that you had about the Gospel Rock Conservation Area. So OECMs, this other effective area-based conservation measures, which is the database that we're looking at here, those are parcels that have been registered that don't that aren't protected through other mechanisms like conservation covenants, which the Gospel Rock area is. So it wouldn't show up in this specific database.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I guess you guys can fight over who's going to speak to the staff report for the corporate administration and legislative services.
I'll
do you
just
think?
start. There's about 12 of us to go through.
I know. I want you to do rock, paper, scissors right now.
Yeah, no, I actually was away for, about 30% of that time. But it was a busy quarter regardless. We're entering our last year of your term, so we've been doing a lot of work on the strategic plan, and I appreciate the work you've put in as well. As we move all those actions forward towards completion. A lot of work has also happened, and I'm sorry I didn't have opportunity to add this piece in here, but we're hoping to have an update on the homeless outreach program, which continues to be quite busy. And I want to highlight the work that Chantel's been doing with an additional rental facility that we're managing, and we recently got some support for a new federal type program to support BC housing. The homeless called Reaching Home. We'll have more for that on council. We continue to work on the emergency planning. I don't know if Tracy can mention some of that. Some being exciting work there. Outside of that, it's busy with the swim drink fish project, passenger ferry project, and the harbor authority as well. It's a busy area in the Five Corners. Very happy that Mike Wall is here, so he's allowed me to wear my vest less and spend more time in the office. That's a bit of a double-edged mixed feeling, but it's been a good piece. So that's mostly the update from my end. I think Tracy and Rebecca have a couple more things to add.
I don't have much to add. The big change for us was the reorganization in our department. You'll see there's a bit of a description there that's a bit of shift. And so my role and Tracy's role have kind of realigned a bit, and Bronwyn is now doing filming permits and public use permits. So that's a change. The work has been steady. FOIs have been busy. The usual corporate and legislative supports across the departments. New things, of course, being for this year, the election. You'll note Bronwyn's comment on the Public Art Path, the First Nations art installation moving forward, her work on the FIFA event, and a very big change in our ICBC department. It's almost a whole new team there. It's Karen plus 3 new people, so a lot of turnover in the last quarter of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026, and so far they're gelling very nicely and it's going very well and they're doing a great job. So that's all I have to add.
Is that, I did notice that in there, like Danielle's gone, right? And yeah, I walked in the other day. Yeah, there were some new faces in there. I had a question. Is the FOI, is it kind of inching down, or is it kind of on par with what the past has been?
Right now, I'd say it's pretty much on par. It's a little bit busier, but it might not continue, who knows? But it's not as busy as it was the first 2 years I was here.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Does any other counselor have a comment? Counselor DeAndre?
Thank you. I was reading page 82, and there's a bullet, the last bullet, and communications with directors regarding the authorized signatories to SRWs, and I cannot figure out what it means.
Sorry, that's a statutory right-of-way.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that report. And last but not least, the Director of Finance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, Finance and Human Resources have been really taking care of business. 25 year-end closing, 25 audit preparations, 26 operation and capital budgets. We have two very good managers, and they basically run the finance and HR ends. So our manager of financial services has also taken care of the 25 financial statements for us. As a group, we really are trying to add value. So one item that's new, and it will take a couple of years to get the full benefit out of it, is the Canoe Procurement Program. That's a Canadian local governments and nonprofits group purchasing cooperative. So the town's now a member of it. People have had some initial training. We're starting to make purchases with it. It could save us in time a lot of money, which would really help our operating budgets and our equipment purchases and not get in the way of the good things we're trying to do with social procurement and everything else. Like, it can all knit together. You've heard about swim, drink, fish. So enough on that, but it's just an example of trying to add value by driving projects through to the point where they are project financed and other people take them over. Also supporting the CAO on the ferry and to a lesser extent on the harbor. The town is doing a lot to help the ferry advance because they have a big, they've got a huge project as entrepreneurs. And finally, adding value is the Elevate series over on the human resources side. So think of it as an initiative, as I experience it now. It's a personal growth partnership between the town, the people who work here, and their supervisors. The outcome for the town and everyone is greater performance. So business-wise, more bang for the buck. But on the other hand, it's also greater happiness, greater satisfaction, more bonding. And I see it happening in small ways, and I'm still relatively new here. We have a lot of people who've worked here a long time. And it's, it's making a difference. And just like Canoe, it's just barely started. It'll be like 3 years in my mind before it's fully like implemented and working. So thank you very much for hearing me out.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for you and your staff, all your work that went into the budget and so on and so forth. I know it's always a daunting task. Does anyone have a question? All right, let's see. Next meeting. The next regular meeting of Committee of the Whole will be held on Tuesday, May 5th at 1 p.m. So meeting adjourned, moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor DeAndretti. All in favor? That's it. Recycle. 9 minutes to spare. So you guys, I mean, obviously, you know, the